So let's talk Shenmue 4, guys. Whilst we literally know next to nothing about it, but briefly, Matt, can you remind us where we're at in terms of, say, Cedric's mention to you, and also what we're trying to do as fans to help get our voices heard again?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as many listeners will probably recall now, I interviewed Cedric just at the end of last year, and I published the interview on Christmas Day, actually, as a Christmas present to everybody. Cedric, when we were talking about the status of Shenmue 4 at the time, said that they had some material ready to pitch to publishers. That included some video and a couple of playable little bits, but he didn't obviously go into too much detail of how much and what. So we know a concept for Shenmue 4 exists. We know that they were looking to pitch to publishers. What we don't know is whether those pitches have happened or not, and what any outcome of those pitches were. So as fans, sort of building on that, every 4th of the month, we use the hashtag Let's Get Shenmue 4 to keep the voice out there on social media. So you can tweet art, you can tweet music, whatever it is, use that hashtag, Let's Get Shenmue 4. And the idea is that we keep the name out there and we keep pushing towards a Shenmue 4. Because at the end of the day, if we don't stay vocal, we will not get a Shenmue 4. So it is honestly that simple.
I did see, was it Jason Schreier? He mentioned a little while ago about that stuff about Cedric mentioning to you about the pitching and everything, that we kind of over-exaggerated it at the time. So
I mean, that was Romain or somebody?
Romain, it was, yeah, you're right.
Romain Mahout.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know whether it's being exaggerated or not. I mean, I'm not an industry insider. I don't know. I'm just going on the fact of what I have been told publicly by Cedric, and that is out there, that they have something to pitch.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't know anything else.
No, I mean, we're not sure where things are, but hopefully at least it's moving steadily. Despite the COVID pandemic situation as well, it's like we said before, it's pushing things a year back.
I'm not too sure we can talk about that. I missed that discrepancy. Was there what happened there?
It was a tweet going around, someone talking about Shenmue 4 never happening, and I tweeted back saying, well, they are pitching to publishers. And then Romain came back to say, oh, as far as I am aware, that's been exaggerated.
He's said from the last he heard or something.
Yeah.
They weren't even at that stage or something. They haven't even started work or something.
Yeah, I mean, with no insider knowledge, what do you think is the next logical step in this process of getting this game made? It's, of course, they're going to have something to show people. Otherwise, there isn't going to be a Shenmue 4. I mean, come on, look at Shenmue 1 and 2. You know, I mean, Shenmue 1 was being developed and at more or less the same time, and Shenmue 2 was being developed. This is Yu Suzuki we're talking about. I think he's a very clever man. I think whether it be cut content from Baisha, I don't know, or, you know, just an example of gameplay in a generic area with improvements they might have made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe. I don't know. I believe Cedric all the way. I believe they have something, either on a movie format or playable format, to walk into a publisher, into a meeting and go, we would like to make Shenmue 4. We would like to have you guys on board. Here's what we have to demonstrate that we can do that. I firmly believe that.
And we mentioned it before. You know, that cutscene at the end of the game, the end of Shenmue 3, walking across the Great Wall, it's supposed to be an FMV, so it's not even the gameplay there, but they have gone out of the way to create that environment, create the wall and everything, and they're not just going to do that to then turn around and convert it into a 20 megabyte bloody video file and whack it at the end of the game. That is something they've gone out of the way to produce. And, you know, I think that is a telltale sign that they have a little bit more than they had at the end of Shenmue 3. That makes sense. But talking loosely now, Peter, what do you think are our actual chances of getting a Shenmue 4? And do you think that the anime, when it is actually released, can help to secure that fourth title in the series? Bearing in mind, if, you know, like your plan doesn't happen where they announce them both at the same time, but say if the anime comes first, do you think that will go part way into helping Shenmue 4?
Well, the anime itself is a double-edged sword, though, isn't it? I mean, it does offer an out of completing the story. We all know that if a game doesn't get greenlit. Which is a great thing. You know, for years we've been screaming on the forums, God, just release it as a manga, just release it as a comic book, just release it as a novel. We just want to hear how this story pans out, which I disagree with. I've never been really on board with that. Shenmue is a game. Shenmue is a video game. Shenmue is an experience. It's a work of art that you play and you experience. It only could, in my mind, be thoroughly enjoyed to finish the saga as a video game. And Yu Suzuki is even in agreement with that. He only wants to see Shenmue finished as a video game also. The anime is a fantastic entity for us to get as Shenmue fans. Let's make no mistake about that. We have not just a little bit of Shenmue content, we have an abundance of Shenmue content, borderline mainstream Shenmue content coming our way, which is fantastic. That will absolutely no doubt help the case for a Shenmue video game even more. You know, the video game fans of Shenmue have been about a lot longer than what will hopefully be anime fans of Shenmue. So I think it'll do absolutely nothing but help its case. Will we get Shenmue 4? Of course, you have to believe. We'll never give up the faith. That's why we have the tweetathon every month. That's why we make sure to go out of our way to keep the Shenmue series alive. I mean, even if it's just word of mouth, even if it's just by making a bit of clatter on Twitter every month. We did that before in the past. It worked. We will continue to do that. If we didn't do that, then you may as well say Shenmue is dead. That's why the fans are so important in contributing every month to the tweetathon, to sharing their experiences of playing the game. Do I think it's a hard sell to publishers? Possibly, yes, but it's not impossible. Shenmue 3 proved that you can do Shenmue on a modest budget, and it was a modest budget by today's standards. And like we've talked about privately, I mean, even if it has to be that way, that's fine. But you already have the engine there. You already have the characters there, the animation, the script, the mechanics. Everything is already there. If you can make just little improvements to those, maybe a little bit of extra mocap. The voice recordings, as we heard from the Bill Black interview, do cost an element of money, but he's also on board to, you know, taking on the road now. He's moved on from the corporation he talked about, and he thinks he could time budget it better. There is absolutely ample opportunity for Shenmue 4 to exist on a modest budget and still be a worthy successor and hopefully completion of the story of Shenmue. There is a worry I do have, and his name is Yu Suzuki, because that man doesn't settle for second best.
Yeah, I mean, I have got this point a little bit later, some of the stuff that you're talking about right now. I mean, it's fair enough, you can carry on talking about it, it's no problem at all.
No, fair away, go ahead, we'll stick to the structure.
Okie dokie. I mean, I was going to ask Matt if he's got anything else to add about the anime and things like that going towards Shenmue 4.
The anime being successful, assuming we don't have the joint launch thing, I think is imperative to the series going forward. It makes those conversations with publishers easier, that they can lean on a successful anime and go, you know, look at this target market, look how many people have bought into this anime, look how many people have then converted over to the games, and then you can have an ecosystem with it in terms of merchandise, in terms of, we're all suckers for it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Merchandise, we buy all of it. So if the more people that are there to buy merchandise, to buy games, it makes those conversations a lot easier. And I agree with what Peter's saying. For a Shenmue 4, I would love them to use the engine they've got and just improve on it, because it's a solid engine. There's nothing glaringly wrong with it. It's just they ran out of money. So the things like the throws could be added in, the fighting system could be tightened up, some of the animations could be tightened up. It's not going to require a massive amount of overlay. I mean, I'll quote Ryan Payton when I interviewed him. He said 70% of the time they had developing Shenmue 3 went into the systems and all of those things before they then fleshed out everything else. Well, that work is now done. They can improve upon it. You're not going to be spending the time on those elements. You can go in on the other areas which need improvement. And the biggest thing for Shenmue 4 is for me, they have to go in hard on the story. Whether Shenmue 4 completes the saga or not, And I don't believe Yu Suzuki will want to complete it as Shenmue 4, but I do think it should be kept under consideration, considering you're running into a risky business asking for a fifth game as well, depending on the success of a fourth game and potentially an anime.
Mhm.
But it has to really engage the story now. It has to push it forward. It has to engage people. Because I think if it doesn't, then we're in a very tricky situation. Will Shenmue 4 happen? I mean, I believe it will. There's always an element of doubt. I mean, what we do know is obviously Shenmue 3 at least broke even, if not made a little bit of money. But did it meet sales targets for the publisher? We don't know, assuming not. But then were those sales targets necessarily appropriate? Again, it's a discussion to be had elsewhere. I think we are in a better position than we were. Let's not beat around the bush about it. We have got Shenmue content coming out of our ears.
Yeah.
And there is potential in this franchise that if it's handled correctly, could really... It's never going to be a mainstream game, let's be honest. But it could be profitable. It could do well. It could expand the fan base and create an ecosystem of merchandise, games, and the like. So, yes, I do think it will probably happen, but there is always going to be an element of doubt, given especially the history that we've got.
Yeah, great answer, man. I mean, we are hoping that fans are going to buy into the Shenmue series, even coming from the anime, if we can drive up those potential sales in the future. Because, like you say, it's not a massive juggernaut of a profit machine, so we do need every little bit of help that we can get. So, Matt's just touched upon a couple of things there, Peter, but thinking ahead into Shenmue 4, based on what we discussed previously for Shenmue 3. So what do you want to see them actually expand on, change, or improve for Shenmue 4?
I honestly, like Matt said, the story. I honestly thought Shenmue 3 was fantastic in terms of its environments. The economy system particularly really helped elevate that. I had a ball, like I said, shopping around, the choice of vendors. All like I think I even read at the time some people kind of complained about all these inanimate objects, but they're not inanimate. All these little collectibles, the toy capsules, there were side quests based on them, things like that. That doesn't need expanding whatsoever. That's awesome. That's already done. Like Matt was saying, the systems are already in place. Just go in hard on the story. And okay, I'll say this. Whilst obviously I haven't read them, I do have in my possession the Shenmue 1 and 2 script sets. I think, judging by the thickness of them, that those games had some excellent writing staff on them. They branched out as far as they could beyond those scripts in terms of characters and subplots and things like that. I think Shenmue 3 failed in that area.
Right, so you think that you're saying that your scripts are maybe thinner than the actual Shenmue 1 and 2 games are?
Yeah, considering the content, especially in 2, that we all know of how grandeur a game that is.
Yeah.
I don't know if that script would cover that.
Is there a chance that there could be like a later script that, how Yu Suzuki's chopped and changed the chapters so much that perhaps
possibly,
part of Shenmue 2 is in a later script, for example?
Possibly. That's why I wasn't even sure if I legitimately got what I was promised in the Kickstarter. I was promised the Shenmue 2 1 and 2 script set, right?
Yeah.
But as we all know, the Shenmue saga is broken down into chapters. Chapter 1 is Yokosuka, obviously. Chapter 2, all my script there is Hong Kong. Shenmue 2 covers Hong Kong, Kowloon, and Guilin. I ain't got Guilin for a start. I know that for a fact. But I haven't read them. It's 10 pence a word I've had quoted for translation. Wow. I am paying hundreds of pounds to get them things translated.
Hopefully my Japanese studies can help out at some point.
Maybe.
Just a quick question, Peter. So you own those scripts, and was the 3 backers who were given that as a reward? So has Yu Suzuki actually got those books anymore? Has he got his own copies still?
Oh yeah, they're numbered.
Okay, so he's not just got like 3 to 16 or something. He's like, fuck.
No, that's what I was concerned. That's what I was even talking to one of the other guys about before we got them. I was sitting going, if Yu Suzuki would have OCD like I think he does, is he okay with just like an entire Shenmue saga script set out there without the missing first 2? I couldn't live that. Just send them the whole lot. Go on. We trust these guys. Go on. You can have the whole shebang. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. But they're basically on the back of them. There's that, like a post office, like a little date stamp.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's like one of those little date stamps, and I can't remember what my numbers are. I think the first one actually is 072. So there's a lot of copies. If you think about it, that script had to speak to everybody on the dev team. So,
and they had such a big team at that time that it's probably hundreds.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
So I haven't translated them. I don't know what's on that last page of the Shenmue 2 one. But there's absolutely no way that game equals to that script set. And I think that's a testament to the writing team that they had on Shenmue 2. I'm not too sure. I think there was like up to 16, 17 writers on Shenmue 2 in the credits.
It was around that. And I think there was 3 on Shenmue 3.
3. I mean, 3.
And we've actually had a little bit of a discrepancy with that as well, because we were touted one of the original writers to come back into the series, and then when we get to the credits, the writer is like a guy that no one's ever heard of before.
Oh, Masahiro Yoshimoto. He was the original like in the Kickstarter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yoshimoto-san. Yeah, I don't know what happened to him. Unless he's just being credited because he did write the original scripts, and obviously these games are based on them.
Yeah.
So he has to be given credit.
That could be it, yeah.
But yeah, for Shenmue 3, what it was, I genuinely feel that's where the ball was dropped in terms of, subplots, writing, character development. It was the lack of writers on the project.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Peter's point actually around the scripts is a valid one, actually talking about the development of games as we know. When I was talking to Ryan back last year, he said that Rio's journey is mapped out. They know what he's going to do and where he's going to do it roughly. Obviously, things can change over time. But what he was saying is it's how you flesh out the B characters and the C characters, which aren't necessarily written down at the time, which obviously Shenmue 3 suffered for because they didn't have the team to do the B and the C characters to the extent I think the first 2 games do.
Mm-hmm.
So you both kind of touched upon this earlier, and I interrupted you, Peter, sorry, but
no, you're all good.
Now, we do expect to see them hopefully reusing these assets, the engine, all the mechanics from Shenmue 3 into Shenmue 4, save on budget, that sort of stuff. But I do know that Ezra did mention to you, Matt, in the interview that Suzuki, he's got this particular vision. He's always looking to go that extra mile. And I think he was a little bit disappointed with some of the fan feedback at the time. And so, he's got that kind of mindset now where he's potentially even wanting to restart the whole thing again from scratch, or, perhaps go into the Unreal 5 engine now, which could be a possibility. So there's choices out there, but obviously going at it from a financial point of view, do you think it's wise or even at all possible to not just go too mental and, just work with what they already have now? Peter, do you want to get into that?
I'll bring me into it. Okay. I think it's a wrong move. You've had to ask a lot of Shenmue fans themselves alone to get on board with this new look, this new Shenmue look. We've been so used to the Dreamcast graphics for the best part of 15, 16 years. And now we have these new graphics, these new control mechanisms and things like that. Are you really then going to just develop a brand new game engine and completely overhaul the look of another game? It's just going to make it even more jarring, I think. And gamers love familiarity. If you're coming into a sequel of a video game that you've played before, you love to see that they've included the things that you're used to, but then expanded upon them. I think it's just absolutely a no-brainer that he just takes that engine. You can improve it graphically. You can improve the texture work. You can improve the frame rate. You can improve the number of NPCs on screen. You can improve the weather system. You can do what you want, but within the confines of what you already have in place. I think, and I'm sorry, where is he getting both the time and the money to start from scratch? I'm not going to lie. I was concerned. I did read that, and I also read how he's looking to make it even more accessible to casual gamers by including waypoints and stuff. God, no.
I mean, obviously to the Shenmue fan base, a lot of those things are unnecessary. Like we mentioned with the side quest thing, where we just want to come across. There's a better word than that, but just come across things naturally. So yeah, I do get your point on that. That it's a little worrying to make it a little bit too mainstream of a game and kind of it is, at the end of the day, a game for Shenmue fans, and that's what we had with Shenmue 3. We had sort of this a lot of elements of fan service, etc., to cater for the fans. I know Shenmue 4 is probably going to go away from that sort of fan service now, but to go a little bit too mainstream could be a mistake, do you think?
But this is the thing, it's hard to know where the man's headspace is at, because it's a complete battle of balance, and it now comes off as contradiction. On the one hand, he's Yu Suzuki, the ever uncompromising Yu Suzuki, I do things my way or the highway, but at the same time, it's like, oh, well, this game is for the fans. And then in Shenmue 4, you're saying, okay, we're kind of not going to do it as much for the fans anymore, but at the same time, I hear your concerns about the story. I'm going to make the next game more story-oriented. So it's all a game of contradictions. And I think if he's going to be pitching that to publishers, I think it's a very clever game he has to play in terms of striking the balance for us as fans to look forward to a game that we think will be great, but also to the publishers that they think that he's going to make the game that's going to sell.
I think he's governed by the team around him as well, and influential people that he works with. I think the message would have gone through to him about the story. I'd be surprised if it didn't. I think the message would have gone through about the systems and the things that may need improving. But it's an absolute no-brainer for me to go in and improve on the system you've already got. We know Unreal 5 is back compatible with Unreal 4. There shouldn't be a huge amount of work if he does want to explore the Unreal 5, that it's not going to deviate too much and cost too much money. So I'm all for that. But what I'm not for is, and this, I mean this in the greatest respect possible, wasting time building a new engine where actually there's not a huge amount wrong with the old one. And given that we, as a Shenmue community, want a fourth game, and let's be honest, Shenmue open world games are expensive to make, and Shenmue being a niche product doesn't lend itself to being able to obtain a big enough budget to make it open world and do all the things that I think Yu Suzuki would want to do, including rebuild a new engine. Whereas if you can cut out rebuilding the engine, just improve what you got, then I think he can have the scope to get the vision that he wants. And that's what I want at the end of the day, that he's able to realize his vision, but that we don't end up in a situation where the franchise is compromised because too much is being asked for. I sound greedy a little bit here, but I want more Shenmue. I want more content. And I just think overhauling an engine, whether he will or not, I don't think that's the right move. I think you've got to go with what you have and improve upon it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And you both mentioned the story being one of those factors that you want to see expanded. So going to the meat and potatoes of the game now, we've got many theories on where Ryo's journey is going, which characters might pop up again in the future, whether Ryo's eventually going to get revenge on Lan Di, or if, perhaps all of the wisdom and teachings he's learned along the journey will mature him as a person away from that aspect. And of course, Ryo isn't the only main character anymore. Along for the ride, we've got Shenhua and Ren too. So let's start with you now, Matt. Where do you see the story heading?
It's difficult. I think obviously we've ended up on we're going towards the Cliff Temple. So you'd imagine obviously that's going to be a part in the next game. I think the way the story in my mind will go is, I think we know that Ryo at the moment is nowhere near a match for Lan Di. He can't touch him. So his ability in martial arts is not going to improve over a short space of time. So I could see them doing a time skip somewhere in terms of his training. Something will trigger it. I don't know. I mean, one theory I've held quite for a long time is that there's going to be a death close to Ryo. Because let's be honest, right? In all of his adventures so far, what repercussions has he really had? Nozomi got kidnapped, but he got her back. But he took down the Mad Angels. What happened after that point? You think a gang would be pretty pissed at being taken down by two blokes. So there'd be repercussions, surely. But there haven't been any that we know of. In Shenmue 2, again, where's the repercussions of his actions? There has to be a payoff in terms of Ryo being so headstrong, so blinded by revenge, that something is going to have to happen to him. That's that moment that he then realizes this is the wrong thing to be doing and there's a bigger picture. So could Ren die? I could see it. I also would love, and I think we should be meeting Zimming by Shenmue 4. I think Zimming's got a big role to play in the story. And I think I'm really intrigued to talk about Shenhua's lineage and where that's going, and her ties to her ancestors and the ancient cities. I mean, we've seen it in the trailers, like Shenmue Online. I know it's apparently not canon, but I don't know. I call bullshit on that. I reckon there's more canon in there than we realise.
I think Peter's got a lot to say about that. Did you put a tweet out the other day? I read somewhere you mentioning about the Shenmue Online trailer, Peter.
Yeah, it was on the forums. We had a topic of discussion on the forums about something. I just caught a post on the fly and was just like, oh, I have to reply to that. But basically, yeah, as you know, as we all do, I love the old footage, the old Shenmue Online footage, the old Project Berkeley footage. Matt basically into the story aspects of it there. I think I'll take then a different approach to it and talk about where we're going and the environments and things like that. I mean, structurally, as long as the budget's there, you just look at what we have in the past. Shenmue 1 had, essentially two main areas. You have the Buita and you have the harbour. Shenmue 2, okay, you have Hong Kong, Kowloon, a little bit of Guinea. Shenmue 3, you have Bailu Village and Niaowu. So I think wherever Rio's going, it's going to be the same structure, obviously. You're going to have, the same type of deal where it's, you're going to this location and you're going to do stuff there. It's going to lead you to another location and you're going to do stuff there. What I will say is I think I might have something juicy to bring to this podcast for people listening. Now, I have no insider information whatsoever, please, as a prerequisite at this time. But on my second playthrough, like I say, I did everything. I did absolutely everything, from side quests to collectibles, the whole 9 yards, right? There was a line that was said, and it caught me off guard very curiously. I was playing the Japanese dub, so I had subtitles on, and oh my god, it just made me excited. I don't even know what the sentence was. I just seen the word. So basically, what happens is if you're playing the Shenmue 3 storylines and you're also doing the side quest, there's a last side quest you do. It's called the Greatest Fortune. Basically, the long and short of it is, it's the last side quest, so it's nothing big dealy. A fortune teller gives you, a task, and you have to go to an area he gives you. And for me, it was up at the top of the New Paradise, like I'd say the burger joint and things like that.
Yep.
There was two guys sitting there, and you have to fight these two guys.
I remember this one,
right? And you have to win the fight, obviously. And so when you win the fight, and I swear to God, this happened, there was like a sit forward in my seat moment for something so insignificant. You beat the guys up, and the other guys are acting all comedically like, oh no, you're better than us, or you're a great fighter or something. But then the one guy turns to the other and says something which I thought as a Shenmue historian very significant. He says, come on, quick, we have to go, we're going to miss our train. And I was like, what? There's like a train station here near Niaowu. Why is that line in there? That line makes no sense. And straight away, I thought back to the old footage we have discussed for how many years. The Project Berkeley green train. And I was sitting going, does Niaowu have a train station? Are we going to get that train in the next game? Is that how Ryo's going to get to that cliff edge? Because we don't actually see him leave Niaowu.
Yeah, see, this is what me and Matt have talked about. The transition from the end of Shenmue to suddenly halfway across the Great Wall. We've spoken in the past. I mean, I'd rather them bring that back, go back to the boat where Ryo's talking to Shenhua's dad. We didn't really have a very satisfying conclusion at that point before we were whisked away onto the Great Wall. So it would be nice to come back and get that journey to the Great Wall aspect.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'd all love to see the bloody train.
Where are they even going on the boat? Does anybody know?
Well, at that point of the game, you're presuming that they're heading to the Cliff Temple.
No, but by that boat though. So then is Shenhua's dad going with them? They must be going back to Bailu Village on that boat.
See, and that would be a good, nice thing to do if they go back to Bailu Village, have a little chat. That maybe we can, I've seen people say stuff about the Shenmue tree, the mirrors, all that sort of stuff should have been answered in Bailu Village while we got the chance. But that's not necessarily saying that we'll never ever go back to Bailu Village again to uncover those mysteries. So perhaps Shenmue 4 could start out on that boat. They're heading back to Shenhua's house. Maybe they have a sit-down chat. He reveals all about the mirrors, why he was working in the stone pit, and we do end up getting those answers that we've craved for nigh on 20 years. That would be, in my opinion, a great way to start the fourth game.
What questions specifically are you looking the answer to? Like, I mean, the Shenmue tree, the mirrors. I just thought the mirrors were created for the Roman Empire,
The Emperor guy,
the Emperor. And that was it. I don't know how to. I don't know how to interpret the legend behind the mirrors. One of them foreshadows doom and gloom with a bloody dragon. The other, but the also other legend gives you a treasure. The Shenmue tree has got mystical powers. They related to Shenfa. Are those things you think could be even satisfactorily answered ever?
Well, it's that underlining tone that we've had. It's a mystery why, at the end of Shenmue 2, some guys working on these two massive mirrors. What's the point of that? Is it just decoration? What is the purpose of him working away so hard on two giant stone mirrors? Then what is the purpose of these strange feelings Ryo and Shenhua are getting around the trees? Ryo's got one back at his house. Shenhua's got one outside her house. Is that even her house that we see in that ancient civilization Chinese emperor temple place in the flashbacks? Me and Matt have spoke about stuff that we want to see eventually get a decent answer to. Like, say, if they just ended the series with Ryo fights Lan Di, Ryo wins, credits roll, I think we'd still have that. Well, what was all that stuff? Why were we introduced to this stuff if there wasn't going to be a satisfying conclusion at some point?
Yeah, I'll actually. Do you know what? If you're talking about what will be included in Shenmue 4, which I feel had so much of a place in Shenmue 3, and I don't even know it was ever even considered, flashbacks. Flashbacks. I mean, flesh that story out by flashbacks. Even when Rio's seen Grandmaster Fang's tree, and then had that little window of his father with old footage from the Dreamcast. I mean, that was the prime perfect point of inserting a flashback with him and is it Long Sun Zhao, or is that's Lan Di? So Sun Ming Zhao.
Yeah.
That's that. Where's that? That's a no. I'm not even a writer, and you could see that. Have them training together at that tree. Have flashbacks to Iwao and when he was in China, possibly even meeting Ryo's mother. Shenmue 4, I mean, God, if they haven't explored that in terms of a storytelling mechanism, flashbacks will do that in abundance. Even with Shenfa, you're already kind of getting flashbacks with her anyway, in terms of like we had in Shenmue 2 when she was born. It achieved so much. It already has us asking questions now about, well, where was that house? Why is she living here in Bali Village?
Yeah.
It has so much potential. I don't even know why they haven't even considered that.
And we've got stuff about Shenhua that, we haven't even mentioned a potential powers. How do you see Shenhua's story playing out across the next game or two?
I think Yu Suzuki's kind of given that away in interviews. He's a very firm believer in power of the earth, in harnessing it inside you, ki, I think it's called, and that you can manipulate forces with just the power of your being. He does believe in that, I think. And I think that's just kind of basically what he's getting at. We've seen it in the Project Berkeley trailer, which I try and not lean too heavily on. As far as I know, a lot of stuff was very concept, and it's not a given that we'll see even any of that in future games. But the power of ki, he has spoken about many times in interviews, and I think that is what Shenhua kind of possesses. I mean, I don't know about her Dr. Dolittle stuff where she can walk and talk and sing with the animals. I don't know what's going on there, but in terms of that scene...
And get people to change their attitude.
Yeah, that scene with Yanling, yeah. I mean, she clearly... There was some of that stuff going on, I think. I don't know, maybe she moved a bottle off the cabinet with her eyes or something, I don't know, but yeah... I don't know. I don't think that stuff's... I think that stuff's inexplicable. I don't think you will ever get answers to that stuff. It's, it's stuff that can't be explained, so you just kind of go with it.
It is interesting that, Ryo's never thought to ask her, all this time on the journey there, the nighttime conversations, even heading into Niawu, he's never at once said, so, what did you do to Yang Lang? There's certain aspects there that you think would be obvious for Ryo to ask. So maybe, like you say, they are kind of keeping that close to their chests. It's not really meant to be thought of in such an extravagant way. It's just something that you kind of have to buy into.
And yeah, in
Perhaps.
terms of explanation, you're not going to get it. But like as Matt was saying, and like I've also spoken about as well, that I think they kind of dropped the ball with the Shenmue Online trailer. That it's too on the nose.
Yeah, there's too much going on.
The whole imagery of the Shenfa in the early days of Shenmue, her princess bridal outfit, the legend of the dragon and the phoenix, and then we get a trailer of Landy physically controlling a Chiyu dragon, and then Shenhua summoning a flaming phoenix. It's just far too. There it is. That's literally what we were telling you was going to happen, and there it's happening. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to retcon that then, and then just come up with a story where everybody goes home happy and has a beer. You know, it's not going to happen.
Well, the fact that that is out there as a medium now, is that going to potentially disappoint us if stuff like that doesn't happen now?
Oh God, no. If it doesn't happen, yeah. Because even though we have that Shenmue Online stuff, I want to see it. You know, I want to play it. I want whatever's in that cliff edge. I want whatever causes. You know, is there a reveal of the treasure? Is it physical treasure? Does Rain get that? Is there a dragon going to come out of the sky? Is Shenhua going to transform into her, you know, her outfit and do all sorts of mad, crazy stuff? I want to see that. Hells yeah. I've loved that mystical element of the Shenmue story.
Next, I'm going to go to you now, Matt. So we haven't really spoken about her, but obviously there's the inclusion of Niaosun, you know, the second huge baddie that's kind of been shown to us since the early days, like the Shenmue premiere stuff. She's been one of those main sort of characters that we've only just been introduced to at the end of Shenmue 3. So she obviously has such a massive role going forward. So do you think you've got like any thoughts about her motivations or how all of this is going to be linked to, say, the mirrors, etc., moving forward?
I mean, she's a master manipulator, isn't she? That's how she's been described in the early content. And bearing in mind, we know that she's attempting to take over the Chiyu men, and as far as we're aware, she probably thinks Landy is dead. Although the boat trip would guess that he probably isn't somehow. For skipping a few bits, I think from Nielsen, what I want to see is what her motivations are. Why does she want the mirrors? What is it for? Does she want the treasure for herself? What is she trying to gain from it other than screwing Landy over? How does Zimming fit into her story arc as well? And how is she going to impact Rio? I mean, she's a master manipulator. Is that going to then impact Ren, for example, who clearly has his eyes on the treasure? I know he's got a friendship with Rio.
And he's got her eyes on Niaosun as well, actually, Ren.
Yeah, cheeky bugger. Is she going to manipulate Ren to do something that would, to push him towards it, or think to push him towards the treasure, but actually she's just using him for something else, and then as a sort of payoff of that, that Ren ends up dying. He ends up last minute realizing what he's done and sacrifices himself. I mean, there's so much that can be done here, but she's a manipulator. That's the big thing. I want to see that in action. I want to see her carve her way through that story and mold people to her will and just really go into that sort of that character of her, of how nasty she is and how evil she is, and also how does Landy fit into that? What's their relationship? What's gone on there as well?
Yeah, and you mentioned Zimming as well. We get that Shenmue 2 side story comic that shows actually Niaosun speaking with Zimming. So there's obviously a relationship that's going to happen there. I think it's pretty much a given that eventually we will see Zimming, and perhaps do you think Shuing will come back to tie that sort of story up as well?
I'd be surprised if she didn't. I mean, I know we shouldn't pay too much credence to the chapter cards because obviously things have changed over the years, but she is in the final chapter card, if I remember correctly. And I'm sure she appears earlier on again as well. So I would expect, especially with Zimming is pretty much nailed on to appear, in my opinion, I would expect to see Shuing come back for some reason, and that will be the Zimming story for me.
Okay, so guys, before we kind of move on, is there anything else that you want to say regarding Shenmue 4 going forward? Anything that stands out to you that we might have missed?
I don't know about stands out what I missed, but for the love of God, just use the damn engine.
Yeah, just make the game. You know, obviously we'll embrace it and critique it whenever it comes, but as long as we'll have the opportunity to get the game, whatever will be will be. It's just as long as we have the opportunity, and of course, Yu Suzuki has the opportunity to give it a crack. Let them somebody have it in their heart. Just I don't mean to sound like begging, but it. I cannot emphasize enough on a personal level from him how badly he wants to finish this saga, how much he loves this saga, how much he loves how the fans love this saga. Out of his entire gaming career, of all the amazing accolades he's achieved, Shenmue is his life now, for better or for worse.
He's kind of getting in the way of potentially other games he wants to work on. He's mentioned he wants to do a racing game again, or these sort of things. And Shenmue franchise in a way is sort of holding him back a little bit because he knows he's still got to finish that within his lifetime. And do you think it's difficult on him because he's got, I mean, obviously he wants to, so he's passionate about it. He's still got that love and drive. So it's not like finishing the saga is going to be hard to do and something that he particularly doesn't want to do. But do you think it's sort of standing in the way of him doing other projects and stuff?
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. This is sort of airing into a different topic altogether, but
yeah,
assuming we don't know how the lights are being kept on at Wiseness, so could he be working on other things now to help fund a potential Shenmue 4? I mean, there's a realm of possibilities out there. Something's keeping the lights on there. They got to be working on something if it's not Shenmue 4. So he could well be working on other projects for all we know, and has sort of decided I'll use that as a medium, but then it sort of feeds his overall vision of finishing the Shenmue saga.
Yeah, but that's what we heard, wasn't it? After Gamescom 2019, I think it was, wasn't it? He went on to, I think he went back to Monaco, I think it was. Or was it after Monaco 19, actually? I might be incorrect in that. But yeah, there was the photograph put out as well. I think it was one of the Kickstarter updates where he was in a hotel room trying VR.
Yeah.
Hardware. I know for a fact that he was on a reconnaissance mission with his camera for a new game. Now, whether this new game would come to light or not is a different story. But his intention was there, which is amazing. But I do know as well, he wants to finish this saga. He just wants Shenmue finished. He feels like he owes a debt to us as fans, particularly after the Kickstarter, to finish this franchise. The note at the end of the game says it all at the end of Shenmue 3.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's very poignant words from Yu Suzuki, actually, how heartfelt it is to him personally, and what it means to him to try and finish the series. So I'm going to say, obviously we don't know anything at all, no insider information, but prediction-wise, pie in the sky, where do you think that we might perhaps see an announcement for Shenmue 4, and do you think it could be this year, or is it still a few years away? Matt, what do you think?
Oh, it's a few years away. I think COVID's played havoc with timelines. If they've even got anything signed off at this point and getting green light, I'm not expecting any announcement until probably latter 2022, if I'm being honest. And I could even see it reaching into 2023. It also comes into how they want to play it in terms of announcing things, and this goes back onto the Shenmue 3 experience that. If I was them, I wouldn't show anything until it was pretty much bang on and ready to go, so that you're not going to open yourselves up to criticism that happened last time. So I could see it being a little while yet.
And GP, are you hopeful for this year still or not?
No, not this year. I'm just going to be selfish on this one. I've always had it in my head. COVID permitting, COVID non-permitting, whatever way you want to look at it. If we get to the end of 2022, if we get to the end of next year, and there hasn't been anything, there hasn't been any sort of interview with Yu Suzuki, there hasn't been any sort of mention, I'll even go as far as to include a little tease, one of the old Cedric teases, If we even haven't had any of that, and there's just no mention of it, I don't know if worried is the right term, maybe acceptance, just kind of like, yeah, I don't know anymore. I think just Shenmue 3 happened, we had a crack at it, we should be thankful for that, but this has now been, 3 years now, after the release of Shenmue 3, even though with COVID, and we still haven't had a whisper. I would be concerned. I would be remiss if I didn't say I would be concerned or worried. And
so you're saying sort of like the end of next year?
End of next year,
that's,
yes,
that's when you'd
2022.
be concerned, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's not going to be another 15 years away. I don't think we could take that, or Yu Suzuki, actually. Like you say, we've got the anime coming. You know, that's not done and dusted. That can only help.
Yeah, you mentioned the Cedric tease as well, and this sort of feeds into what we were talking about off air. Is the tweet that he put out? I think it was Thursday or Friday this week, where a fan was asking him on Twitter about Shenmue 4, and he said 3 simple words: "Keep the faith." Now you can interpret that in many different ways. Worst case scenario is that they're working on something behind the scenes, and keep going. We are still working. And best case scenario is that he sat there going, "Ha, we've got this green lit, boys. We're just waiting to tell you," sort of thing.
Yeah, he can't hold it in. He's keep the faith. Because he knows,
and we know he likes a tease.
Yeah.
We know he likes a tease, does Cedric. So I don't know. He's going to be in a position more than most of us to know what the status of Shenmue 4 is, providing, of course, that he is still wanting to be involved in it. I imagine his tweet would suggest he is involved or wants to be involved in Shenmue 4.
And at least that's something, right? You know what I mean? It's not like no one said anything. At least for him to even say anything at all is better than not.
Yeah, exactly. And Cedric cares. You can tell he cares deeply about this franchise and getting this thing over the line. So I think he does need to be involved anyway. I think we'd lose something if he wasn't. But he, like you say, he could just say nothing. He could have ignored the question. So if he's not ignoring the question, it's for one of 2 reasons in my book. Either it's just to reaffirm, keep going, keep pushing like we are.
Yep.
Or it's a very, very slight, well, there might be something going on behind the scenes, but we're not going to tell you just yet. But this is based on nothing other than guesswork.
Great stuff, guys. I think we've covered all of those little elements very, very nicely, actually. You've both made some very valid points.